where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
I want you to imagine that you're in a city. You're walking down the road and you pass a McDonald's. And outside the McDonald's, you notice a man and what you assume to be his daughter asking for change. As you walk away, you notice the man giving up, and he begins to leave, and you realize that this is probably his first time panhandling. And the daughter, she notices you, and she tries tugging on the guy's sleeve to get the man to turn around and notice that someone who looks like they may be willing to help is noticing them. But he doesn't turn, and he's made up his mind. It seems like he's come to the understanding that no one is going to help them. Today we'll be talking about homelessness in the Renaissance, and we'll be referring to particularly a book by Gregg, Colburn, and Clayton Page. It's called the Homelessness is a Housing Problem. And just to give you guys some understanding, the introduction is is really from rather than from the book, like I would normally do. This is actually a personal experience. I mean, it's kind of it's an experience that it definitely had an impact that may not seem obvious to many people, and but it carries on in my particular mental in some way, shape, or capacity. But in terms of the first thing that struck me in this particular book is that and really in the introduction itself was the fact that homelessness and poverty aren't exactly identical, right? So we have homelessness, which is defined as essentially just not having an actual indoor place to stay, and then poverty, and poverty being not having a lot of income or money to spend, right? So and that doesn't seem like it. I mean, it seems really easy to kind of crisscross and use these two interchangeably, but you'll notice down the line of why that's kind of a not really something that we should do in general. And and this idea of us really addressing poverty or homelessness shouldn't be mistaken as us doing the alternative, in terms of a lot of these issues, right? Because it's not the same thing, right? So and it becomes very clear that it's not the same thing as you kind of go through the book and you realize all the different experience or all the different scenarios. But despite really how people would normally like say homelessness works. There's really no data that suggests that that homelessness is a direct result of drugs or mental illness, right? And this is a common misunderstanding that people kind of come to, right? Because these people are on the street because they are addicted to drugs. And being on the street, like when you're out on the street, it does, those things become more appealing, right? That lifestyle does become more appealing, right? So there may be a higher percentage of homeless people that are addicted to drugs, but really when you've kind of resulted, or when your result is kind of sleeping on the street, a lot of people, when it comes down to the ability to escape reality, I think that it becomes more appealing to a lot of people in terms of drug use in general, right? Now, also one thing is a lot of programs really there are a lot of programs around this idea of the homelessness and rehabilitation and getting these people back into society. But in terms of the actual those programs themselves, there's data that shows that this isn't necessarily something that you want to force people into in terms of sobriety the idea is sobriety must come before housing and and that doesn't appear to have the effect that we really want in terms of really leading to less homelessness, right? So a lot of those programs, in terms of they seem to be more optimal when they are optional, right? So we have the option of a lot of what takes place, and I usually don't. I try not to. I try to keep it normie, keep it normie in terms of the understanding of a lot of these things. But when it comes down to this particular issue, I'm for those that don't know, I'm an astrologer, and I practice a certain part of astrology, or a certain form of astrology that I call zodiacal alchemy. Right, so all the astrologers, there's no one astrology to rule them all, despite a lot of them, they kind of have to really say, oh, this is the only one that works. But in terms of the idea, it's a lot of different, I would give credence to a lot of different forms and methods for astrology. But in terms of my particular form of astrology, zodiacal alchemy, Pisces would rule over homelessness, right? So that fits into that fits into Pisces, right? So the idea of Pisces would rule over a lot of different things, and I think it's important that a lot of like understanding the kind of the Pisces or 12th house as well. And for those that don't know, that's like kind of how you split the chart. It's a bit complicated, but in terms of Pisces, you don't necessarily have to be Pisces to experience Pisces, but it's kind of or to experience that Pisces dynamic. And what things roll over Pisces, and that could be attributed to the 12th house, right? So like a lot of you guys, let's say you're like a different astrological sign, but you have 12th house placements that are strong, or your sun in the 12th house, then that would you could certainly resonate with the idea of a lot of Pisces things. In terms of understanding what this is, in terms of homelessness and linking people to linking people from homelessness into everyday society. I would say that Pisces and understanding Pisces is going to it's going to really yield more effective results, right? And this idea of Pisces, we're talking about in terms of the understanding the other things that are rolled over by Pisces and maybe kind of could be used by Pisces in general is the idea of imagination, the idea of artistry, the idea of also the food, the cooking as well, but also prayer, meditation. And this particular idea and of homelessness in general, I view it as kind of I would view it as more of a failure in terms of because right now in our current society, we do uphold and prioritize Christianity above a lot of other religions and things out there. And I think that the prevalence of homelessness is a direct result of the failure of kind of our just Christianity in general, right? So in terms of this idea of kind of trying to hold Christianity at the top and as really the primary outlet for this pressure of Pisces, that I would say, I think it has led to a lot of people simply choosing to escape reality in a way that is not going to be prayer or meditation. It's going to be the idea of Pisces also rules over drugs and drug usage, and they like that appeal and kind of people leaning more on that idea, I think is really a direct result of a failure of society to give these people more outlets for this Pisces pressure that is building in our society. And I myself, I do want to create. I want to create, since we're already on this kind of wavelength of talking, I want to create energetic environments that really help alleviate and create more outlets for this Pisces pressure, right? So, and I think, and I could be completely just out of touch, in terms of what I'm thinking and what could be effective, but I do believe that there's a way to essentially create that environment and lead to really the alleviation of, or the transition from homelessness into a more appealing transition from homelessness into our everyday society in a way. And that is such a long I feel like that is such a, like, I am so out of line with that particular the next 2 sessions, I will not even mention anything about zodiacal alchemy or astrology in general. But I do think that that kind of gives a lot of background, because this is a particular issue that I believe we need to. I believe that we need to kind of, a lot of people who are kind of on the outskirts right now, they need to come in and essentially expose themselves as, expose their beliefs, and kind of marry the world of the unseen with the world of the seen, right? So a lot of the places that I intend to build, they'll have just as much of an impact in the world of the unseen as they do in the world of the seen. And that's kind of the idea here, is that when you have that understanding of life that kind of helps ground you in a way, then this is something that could help more people and lead to a more effective society in a lot of different ways. And in terms of, like I said, I'm completely out of. I am so out of line right now. But in terms of this particular idea of homelessness, we need to really understand. We need to understand homelessness from a perspective that is, in terms of treating homelessness, right? So in terms of this Renaissance, treating homelessness, right? So treating our society, repairing our society. The repair of our society would lead to a lot less of really the elimination of the idea of poverty in general, right? So poverty, or or homelessness, I would say, in general. And I think, I mean, it's something that I particularly remember interviewing a person who was kind of working as a social worker, and the idea was that, what really struck me in this conversation, what I found out was there was no objective in terms of, okay, well, there was no site to say, well, what if we end homelessness, or that that there was no particular thought pattern behind that. And it's very, very much a problem, right? Because I think that kind of sets up an organization to continue on, right? So not really with a particular end goal in sight. That sets up a cycle of homelessness. And it, in terms of, with this, one thing with this book is, what you'll realize is, we actually develop we invest in responding to crises regarding homelessness, right? But we don't really develop kind of a more effective. We don't really, we address the problem, right? So one analogy would be like, picture you having, the response itself being kind of a tub that is filling or overfilling with water, right? We respond in a way to where we are not necessarily trying to open the drain. We are just trying to completely, or just kind of trying to dry up the water. We're not trying to close the drain or open the drain. We're not trying to open the drain to let the water out. We are not trying to cut off the water flow into the actual tub itself. We are simply throwing towels on top of this particular issue. And just to give you guys an understanding, like, opening of the drain itself would be creating more outlets for really what happens, right? So transitioning people from homelessness into regular society in a way, right? So or everyday society in terms of where people have homes and people have work or whatever comes about here, right? And that would be kind of us opening the drain to really kind of transition these people out of homelessness, right? Not just out of the shelter. That would be the drain, or opening the drain itself. Stopping the actual water flow would be addressing really the idea of unaffordable housing, and how you go about doing that. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And this book, I really like it because there's an understanding that, hey, the government doesn't necessarily have to be an innocent bystander with a lot of this stuff. And having a percentage of housing that's made available, the market. One thing I really like I said, I like this book for a few reasons, but one thing is that it does give it credits the market in terms of how the market could actually does work, but it also says, hey, look, if we kind of marry the idea of the homes, right now the market would own all these homes, and that's kind of how people find housing and do whatever. But if the government had kind of a more of a stakehold in terms of more ownership over really a lot of different places, then they could more effectively control more of the housing. Because if we leave everything to market, then these people are going to create more profit, or they're going to try to get as much profit and extract as much profit from the actual the actual society itself. When you create I would say when you have government involved and they have a percentage of that, right? There is that response, right? So going in and getting into the system, there is going to be an understanding that the market will not handle everything, and this is really due to a few things, but a lot of it. This book attributes to the idea of high growth and really low response and high growth. So what that could look like is, essentially like a review process that is extensive in a lot of different ways, and a population that is growing, that it's really seeing a lot of growth, right? So, and this is given to us in this particular book. There's LA is known as really kind of the when you think of homelessness, a lot of people will think of LA, and the idea is that LA has something to where it's very hard to build in LA, and it is not necessarily in the boom in terms of the people that are coming to LA. It's not responding appropriate, or it's not responding to these people, and that's a problem. That creates a problem with in a lot of different ways, and we kind of have to see that, see what's going on, right, in terms of actually doing in creating a real outlet there. And just to give you guys an idea of in terms of this idea of homelessness and poverty, you don't see homelessness in places like Mississippi, and that right there it's something, because when you rank Mississippi in terms of the services available, which also kind of discredits this idea of a kind of a the welfare queen mentality for a lot of these homeless people. Like, they're homeless because they are trying to get and extract government resources and whatever, and there was that right there. It was also kind of like maybe it wasn't Mississippi exactly, but that particular idea didn't really didn't have backing. And a lot of what we see now would be like people moving from situations. For instance, if they go into a place like Mississippi rather than L.A., the housing, the housing market would really lend to more more availability in general, because of really how easy it is to build in a lot of these places, right? So it's and the market is going to respond, because a lot of these guys aren't there's not, you don't have people coming from Silicon Valley to with six-figure paychecks trying to really compete with anything in the market there, right? So that doesn't happen a lot. And so the demand really doesn't really go up as much, right? So also places like Texas, you don't see a homelessness problem in Texas. And the idea is that there is, the market seems to do its part in a lot of these areas, but it's not necessarily a lot of problem. Is it comes down to the building, right? So my mind instantly goes to I have a background in kind of construction and contracting and stuff, and contracting, so I kind of like or kind of been thinking about a lot of this stuff in terms of the idea of streamlining this process of building. And a lot of this, I think, there's a ton going through my particular mind, but I think a lot of this is going to maybe be solved with the idea of contractors with kind of more streamlined privileges in terms of with kind of the ability to build in certain areas and not face the headaches that really come with building in places like LA. And there's a lot of I'm picturing also like the idea of like technologically what people can do, what people like in terms of the idea of like for instance like AutoCAD, what we can. That's more of a kind of a specialization thing in terms of the idea of being able to help people build by providing a kind of a 3D map, in different areas and locations. But that's kind of going out there a little bit. But in terms of like those ideas and that, addressing, going back to this analogy of the tub overfilling, we are putting more money into really essentially cleaning up this mess in terms of putting towels down than it would cost to simply close the faucet or really unplug the drain and create more, because it's actually very expensive. It's expensive to have this issue in general. And a lot of people don't quite see that and don't understand that probably, but it is it's expensive in terms of the actual money by itself. Is expensive, but also it's expensive because in terms of businesses and stuff, like, businesses trying to essentially operate in the society that we've built, it becomes less appealing to essentially play this game of capitalism when you have people out in front of your particular street, or you have to spend time trying to address this particular, group of people that are kind of in front of, that may be in front of your shop at some point, and and that's in terms of the idea. I think we'll see more of we'll have to see more of people going in to address address this issue from not an emergency response standpoint, but simply, all right, let's handle this issue by cutting off the drain, or by, specifically, specific policies that are going to cut off the drain, or cut off the faucet, or open the drain, and being more effective there, and really saving a lot of money there. There's a lot of money to be saved, but there's also a lot of, if you've been following along, like, there's also, like, I just remember, like, there's a conference of, like, people who are, I kid you not, there are conferences where people hold, and try to, attract contractors and say things like, hey, this is how you make money off of natural disasters. And I kid you not, these people are, like, literally trying. They sit down in a chair and they listen to this. This is essentially a monster tell them how to do this, right? So whether they're a conscious or an unconscious monster, I think it's very clear that that's very monstrous to do. And that's very, very uncomfortable. But apparently, like, if you think about the money that we spend on responding to homelessness, there's a lot of people that view that as money to be made, and that's very, very. I think it's fair to say that homelessness is an expensive issue, and it's also, on the other hand, it's very profitable as well. And we really have to think about that in terms of how we move forward, and fix what we have now in terms of this idea of, if you are an advocate for capitalism in any way, I don't think you can ignore the fact that we have gone completely off the rails with a lot of this. The fact that conference could even exist is a tremendous issue. But I do think we need to address that in so many different ways. Now, weather is like this. It's another thing, right? So, a lot of us seem to think that, or a lot of, I would say, some rhetoric is, revolves around the idea of weather, in terms of the outside weather, making it more comfortable for people to be homeless, leading to more homeless. And there is that does not seem to be the case, right? So you think about LA, you're like, oh, okay, it's sunny out. All these people are homeless. If they're homeless, they're out here because it's more benefit, or because it's, it's comfortable. And if you look at different areas, that doesn't hold true, right? So that doesn't appear to really have a background in any type of data in terms of what we have in the society wide, right? So like I wish I'd have wrote down the exact place to really give you guys an understanding, but there doesn't appear to be a significant link between weather and weather in terms of making it comfortable to be outside and there to be this comfort, leading to more homeless people in general. Now, another thing is that policing homelessness, right? So, I really hope it's not a surprise to anybody, but I think it might. Unfortunately, I think it really might be. It's not helpful, like it's really just if these people are just simply being told to go away, no, it's not no, like that doesn't. I'm sorry if you took this seriously in any way, shape, or form. I don't mean to laugh at you. It's just not helpful. And people, essentially just just imagine busting up one tent city and then just having like smaller ones sprout up around it, or sprout up around that area. That would you could imagine that the problem itself doesn't go away, right? These people still exist when you tell them to essentially get lost. And there's there's a movement apparently in Seattle about really movements around criminalizing homelessness and not having a house, and that's not right. And it's hard to imagine people or politicians making it, to any level where they receive any type of acknowledgement and not coming to the understanding that this is wrong and in so many different ways. And so in terms of that acknowledgement plus that knowledge of really the problem not really being helped by policing, it's easy to come to the conclusion that these people are acting for evil, evil intent, evil means. And I think a lot of us do need to think about that. And this is something that this is, like I said, this is a societal problem, right? So like the way we do things now, I can't say I've seen this work exactly, right? So like everybody, since we've kind of been on this wavelength for this particular recording, I want to say that there is everybody hates Saturn, right? So Saturn is, in astrology, Saturn would be kind of the rigid responsibilities and kind of being more tough, right? And I do think we need to understand that there is an element of Saturn that does come into this, right? So definitely not policing homelessness, right? So, or not policing, like the idea of these people ending up in jail cells because they don't have homes is, I mean, that's, to be frank with you, it's disgusting. But I think in another sense, we have to understand that we can't necessarily allow things to kind of be as they are, right? Because a lot of people do suffer in those, there's increased likeliness of, abuse happening in a lot of these different situations for a lot of, vulnerable populations. And we have to kind of think about that as well when we address and when we come to the understanding that there does have to be a rigidity to, or a kind of a responsibility that we have to impose upon these people in certain way, shape, or form. And I do think that the balance is going to be very much something that we have to, think about. Now, this idea of really addressing the problem with essentially the elasticity of housing, right? So, like, how easy is it to to build more houses? That is one way, and another way is essentially, like I said, like like being able to provide more houses. And usually that's done in essentially like more dense situations, to where like you have like more complexes coming up, and people I mean, I am not trying to be ageist at all, but like I mean, traditionally boomers don't like to see that, right? So they like seeing single family houses. And I mean, just imagine, like, you don't have to do anything but buy a house and then watch it like appreciate in value. I mean, it is infuriating to think how easy it was for these people to now turn around and say no homeless, no housing developments here. It is infuriating to a point to where it's just like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're gonna do it anyway. Like, I'm just like, what do you? I'm like, I am not going. I have no intention for going going into political office at any time, and that's probably why. Because it's just like, yeah, I just tell these guys, hey man, shut up. It's gonna happen. I think a lot of us need to think about, like, really what we allow, because when it comes down to, there's a huge hypocrite population in terms of with the United States in general, but especially with with Democrats and homeless, and in terms of having their neighbors and what happens in their neighborhood not really being more stringent in terms of keeping out a lot of these situations, and a lot of these situations of more affordable housing initiatives and stuff like that. And we do have to think about this as a population, because I mean, going back to that also that meeting, to where like they're trying to figure out ways in which contractors and companies can profit off of natural disasters. That's like the fact that that exists is insane. That's absolutely insane, but it does tell you something about our population that it could exist, and I think we really have to think about that. And also this idea of you know us coming into this Renaissance area in general. I do think we'll need to be more, more precise about how we handle a lot of different things, right? So the market can have its room, right? So you play capitalism, but the idea of governments owning a percentage of housing and holding a percentage of housing is also going to be important in terms of, especially in these situations in these areas where market, like they're trying to appeal to, to people with six-figure incomes, and they're ignoring everybody else because their profit is with the people, that have six-figure incomes. We have to think about that. We have to think more. We have to think more about that. And I don't think the blanket statement, the blanket statements of socialism or capitalism work. In this particular society, I think we do have to kind of come to an understanding that this is what we have here is capitalism unhinged. And we do have to come to that acknowledgement, that understanding. And I think a lot of people that are for capitalism, they need to be fighting even stronger for the reforms to take place to address these very real issues of why people would say, we need to go over and do this whole socialism thing and do, and completely give way to socialism. I do think there are significant parts of the system that could work, but I think it's foolish to ignore what doesn't work, and we'll have to move forward with that understanding in terms of really being able to effectively address these issues in general, and still maintain our our freedoms in a lot of different ways. Also, this is this idea of really, the outlets. I think also I want to say there's an idea of really helping people transition out of particularly like I am kind of building to address low income. I'm very interested in, but also designing places that address mental illness and that address drug addiction as well. And those things are and understanding those things and being able to address those things, I think we'll have to kind of increase our understanding of and really yield more to the idea of people trying to impact the 3D reality with an understanding that is married to this that is married to the world of the unseen. And this idea of homelessness in the Renaissance and moving forward. It's a tremendous statement. We can't. These aren't issues that we can ignore, right? Homelessness is one thing, but the prevalence of poverty is another. And I think a lot of us think that we've kind of get trapped, right? So if we can do something and make money, we should do it, right? And that's kind of the understanding that's really become ubiquitous throughout society, right? So it once in this idea of I think is directly something that makes me think of what's happened with our cell phones and our cell phones in our pockets. If we can do something, we should. If we can do something and make money, we should do something. Social media companies, they can try and keep us on that app for as long as they need, or for a longer period of time. They can research. They can do all these things. In terms of the response from the people, in terms of how we are being manipulated in mass by a lot of what goes on. And I think that we have to come to an understanding that this is not healthy. And I think the same thing should be said about kind of the way we live in general, right? We have to, when we think about, for instance, when we think about concepts of Egypt, right? The concepts of, that civilization that could last thousands and thousands of years. We have to have an understanding that is it's growing in steps. So, for instance, I think of that civilization is grown as having a consciousness that grew in step with their technology, and I think our technology has grown, and our consciousness has not responded in kind to that. And I do think that we'll need to address the way we live in general, and what we do, and not necessarily just because, I'm thinking of the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Just because you can do something and it will make you money doesn't necessarily mean you should do something. And I think we have to kind of come to that understanding and really, really, ask ourselves the questions that aren't necessarily based in, profit, a profit-driven mind. And with that being said, this has been Homelessness and the Renaissance. And if you would do me a favor, like this video, share this video, and or subscribe to this podcast as well if you're listening to this via podcast. And I'd hope to see you next time. Thank you.